Chapter 8. I don't know why, but I trusted Patrick, considering he had just tried to kill me. I knew in my gut he was being real and not conning me. This poor guy had obviously gotten caught up in something he can't handle. I was still questioning if any of this was real, but at this point my safety was more important than my sanity. I helped Patrick into my car. He was pretty jacked up, but then again this asshole tried to kill me. What was I supposed to do? I shut the passenger door and went behind my vehicle, staring at the silver stake that still laid in the middle of the 76 station parking lot. I decided to pick it up. It did have my fingerprints all over it after all. I jumped into my Mustang and felt as much pain as I could ever remembering experiencing. My shoulder was killing me. I'm pretty sure I busted out a few more stitches. And now, with compliments of Nero, my arm was killing me. I backed my Mustang out at the driveway and headed back to the freeway. Where am I taking you, Patrick? I said. Patrick was pretty fucked up, to say the least. He was spitting up blood all over my interior. I felt bad, but I had to keep reminding myself he and his friend attacked me first. I was minding my own business. That's 2 attacks in 3 nights. Not to mention I had a MMA fight also. Had to admit, I'm an American badass who has clearly lost his mind. I looked over at Patrick and this poor guy was coughing and wheezing. He might be choking to death. I didn't know what to do. If I took him to a hospital, I'd get arrested because I was the one who kicked his ass and my fingerprints were all over him. I needed to take him back to my apartment. I looked at my clock. It was almost 5 o'clock in the morning. I had so many questions for this guy. I had seen him become a bird and then a man. I don't know if I was hallucinating on the pain pills, but this motherfucker was most definitely a bird. If I have lost my mind, I needed to continue to believe my hallucinations. Just like anything else, when your mind spirals out of control, if you quit fighting it and ride it out, you can usually figure out how to steer it in the right direction. Is there anything I can do for you? I asked. Don't let me out in the sunlight. It's almost morning. I need to get indoors. I think I heard him right. He just said he can't be in the sunlight. And he needed to be indoors. Sure, why not? Patrick grabbed my right arm with his left hand. Cairo, he said. Help me. I'm hurting real bad. I know you are, dude. I'm taking you to my place. You do understand what I am, right? I was afraid to answer. I'm a vampire. Of course you are. That was when my brain went numb. I put my foot on the accelerator and I was going 110 miles per hour on the freeway. He said. Vampire, I said to myself. Of course he's a vampire, I mumbled. He's also a fucking bird and some other kind of thing called a mani. Patrick squeezed my arm with his left arm and then passed out. Was he dead? I didn't think he was. I could see him breathing ever so slightly. Plus the other guy disappeared when I killed him. Then it seriously dawned on me. I fucking killed someone. I got to my apartment and helped Patrick into my room. I laid him on my bed. I could see the sun peeking up. How was I going to keep the sun out? Could he really be a freaking vampire? And if he was, what the hell was I doing? Nursing him back to health? I had some cardboard boxes in my backyard and I grabbed some nails and a hammer. I covered my bedroom window with the cardboard and I nailed the sides in the wall surrounding the window. I must have put 100 nails in that cardboard. No outside light was coming in, I made sure of it. I rolled Patrick on his side and got him some water and some ice. I wasn't sure if I could fall asleep or even rest. I definitely couldn't stay here. I needed answers. I looked in the mirror and my beard was gone. Did I shave before I left? I had no clue about anything. I decided to go to the only place I knew to go. After all, she did say she was a werewolf. I jumped into my car and headed back to the Radisson Inn over on Beach Boulevard. I parked my car and went up the stairs and to room 202 where I had left Sasha. I knocked on the door and there was no answer. I yelled out, Sasha. Nothing. I knocked as hard as I could and then I heard some rustling from inside the room. In a few seconds I heard the door unlatch. Opened a little and I saw Sasha. Her hair was soaked. She must have just taken a shower. Hey there, I said. Can I come in? Sasha stared blankly at me. The room isn't exactly the same as you remember. Just let me in, I persisted. Sasha opened the door, and I could tell right away something wasn't right in the room. It looked like a tornado had come through it with a pack of wild animals. There were claw marks everywhere. The door looked like a million cats had gotten to it. What the hell happened in here? I asked, surprised beyond words. Sasha didn't say anything. I continued to look around the room. The bed was turned over and shredded, the TV was on the floor, both lamps were busted open in the middle of the floor. It even looked like something had gnawed on all the cords. I repeated my question, and this time I wasn't playing around. What the fuck happened, Sasha? I used my fucking credit card. They are going to make me pay for all this. There's at least $10,000 worth of damage in here. Finally Sasha whispered softly, I told you, Tommy. You didn't believe me. I shook my head in disbelief. I sat on the shredded mattress and just stared at the room in absolute horror. I think this was the straw that broke the camel's back. I was now finally about to have a nervous breakdown. I just closed my eyes and calmly said, So you're a werewolf? I told you, look at this place. Do you think in my wildest dreams I could had done this? Look at the door. It would take me years to do that to a door as a woman. But you did do it, I said, even more calm. You did it as a werewolf. What else would explain it? I truly had no clue what could explain this sight. I came over here to talk about the vampire asleep in my bed. The last thing I could have imagined would I'd be sitting in the middle of downtown Baghdad. I continued to look around the room and I thought about all the crazy shit that has been happening. Now, everything was coming together. In a bizarre, crazy-ass way this was starting to make sense. We need to get you out of here. We need to tell management that we left, and when we got back the room looked like this. There is no way in hell they have ever seen anything like this. They will have to believe some kind of coyote got in here. A whole gang of them. Let's get out of here. Sasha grabbed her purse and ironically that had nothing wrong with it. We left the room. I peeked my head in the room one more time and just sighed. We began to walk down the stairs to get to the front desk. Oh yeah, I said. I'm taking you to my place and I have a visitor. A visitor? Who? Sasha asked. A vampire, I said. And he thinks my name is Cairo. Chapter 9. The Radisson didn't quite know what to make of the room. They were more worried that we'd be the ones suing them because a wild animal had gotten into the room, so they just made sure we were okay and left it at that. Thank God. We arrived back at my apartment. I checked up on Patrick. He was in the exact same position I had left him. Sasha had some nurse training. I thought when he woke up she could check on him. I felt like a turd for not taking him to the hospital. I still might, but I need to process this first, and as far as I could tell he was breathing fine. If he was suffering some internal life-threatening injuries, that remained to be seen. I walked out into my living room and Sasha was sitting on my couch. Thanks, Tommy. I just stared at her perplexed. I didn't even know how to respond to that statement. Thanks. I wanted to say you're not welcome. Since meeting you my entire life has spun out of control. But I held my tongue. We need to get you a cage, I said. A cage? Yeah, I'm putting this werewolf thing to the test and sticking your rabid ass in a cage tonight is the only thing I can come up with. I don't have rabies. Where will you find a cage to hold a werewolf? Where you find everything you need, Craigslist. I went on my computer that was on a desk in my living room. I got onto the site and went on Orange County and its surrounding areas. I typed in large animal cage. Wow, I said out loud. There's a page full of cages here. What kind of cage do you want? You're really going to put me in a cage? I saw what you did to that room. I just recently got new furniture. Look here, I read out loud. It says large cage used to hold a gorilla, strong bars. Nothing gets in or out. Damn. $2,500. $2,500? Yeah. That's way too much. It is, I said. But I'm looking at these other cages and I do not trust how small they are. The expensive cage is gigantic. Do you have $2,500? She asked. Don't worry about that, I said. I knew she was a con artist, so she didn't have to know anything about my income. I just recently had $80,000 given to me when my grandfather died, and there was no way in hell she was going to know that information. I called the number and the guy said I could have it for $2,000 if I picked it up in San Diego. How in the world am I going to get to San Diego and haul a 2-ton cage 100 miles before tonight? I had to do it. I needed to go down there and rent a U-Haul truck. We're taking a trip to San Diego, girly girl, I announced. Can we stop by the store? Sasha asked. I need some girl items. I looked at her with zero expression and said, "All right, I don't need to know anymore." We stopped in at Walgreens and then we headed down to San Diego and got ourselves a cage big enough to hold a mountain lion. I drove the U-Haul back to the OC, while Sasha drove my Mustang. I called ahead and got some movers to meet me at the apartment to get the thing inside my apartment. After the movers helped me get the gigantic cage into my living room, they gave me a look like, "Why do you have a 10-foot cage in your apartment?" I told them Sasha was kinky and I tipped them well. I also told them to keep it on the down low that I had a cage. So now it was just time to wait for the full moon to come out. I checked up on Patrick. He was still sleeping and looked awful. I asked Sasha to check him out. She actually didn't want to look at him because he was a vampire. I pointed out to her that she didn't have a choice. She saw it my way. My bites from the night before were killing me. My shoulder ached. I was pretty jacked up. I was sitting in my living room staring at the cage, wondering how strong Sasha was when she turned. Could she knock over that cage? I couldn't even believe I was having these kinds of thoughts. I kept reminding myself, go with it, gain control of it, and then all of this might make sense. Sasha came back out of the room after looking at Patrick. "He's pretty messed up. Did he wake up?" I asked. "Not really. He definitely didn't know a werewolf was checking on him. He needs a doctor, and if he is a vampire, a lot of red flags will go off." "Like what?" "There is a reason why the triad has our bodies disappear when we die." "The triad?" I asked. "What the hell is a triad?" "The triad is everything." "You mean God?" "No. More like the heart of God." "Look, spare me this tale. If you truly turn into a werewolf, you can give me all the paranormal history you want. But as of right now, let's take care of tonight. I'm thinking I also need to chain you in." "Chain me?" Sasha did not like that. "Yeah, you might be really strong. Also, where will you go to the bathroom?" "I'm going to put some cardboard in there." So we left again and went to Home Depot and I bought the strongest chains they had. When we got back, I locked the chains from inside the cage. I had no idea what I was doing, and the more I was taking this seriously, the more I was convinced I was in some alternate universe where truth and love have been replaced by werewolves and vampires. I stepped out of the cage and realized this damn thing took up my entire living room. It took almost the entire open floor that separated the TV from the couch. I looked outside and said to Sasha, "Well, how does it usually happen? The whole turning from human to werewolf thing." "I really don't know. I have almost no recollection when I become a werewolf." "Of course you don't," I said sarcastically. "Seriously, that would be too easy. What I don't understand is, if there are werewolves running around, why aren't there more instances of attacks?" "There's a strict code the car and I live by. We drive off to remote areas that are far away from the Tundra." "And Tundra is what you call humans?" "Yes." "Then why are you here and not in some remote area?" "I don't really have anywhere to go. I'm pretty much an ostracized werewolf." I looked at her and just thought, of course she is. "And what about my little vampire friend in the bedroom?" He referred to himself as a Mani. "Mani are vampires," Sasha said plainly, as if she was saying something you hear every day. "Okay." I shook my head, trying to wrap my mind around all of this crazy information. "He didn't become a bat either," I said. "He actually became a blackbird." "It's a raven," Sasha corrected me. "Mani transition into black ravens and red hawks." "Red hawks?" I asked. "Yeah, men become black ravens and women become red hawks." "What do Karnai become?" She laughed. "We become werewolves." "Oh yeah, I forgot that part. But you can't control it, but vampires can." "Yeah, it's not fair, but that's the hand we were dealt." "How does someone become a werewolf?" "They get bitten by a Karnai when it's a werewolf and survive the bite." I thought about the other night. Hey, those 3 guys I fought on the street, were they Karnai? Sasha was quiet. Were they? I persisted. "Yes." "Were you ever going to tell me that?" "How could I? You didn't even know I was one till today." "So the one that bit my shoulder was a full-blown werewolf?" I asked. "He wasn't when he bit you." "So what happens when one of these freaks bite you and he or she isn't a werewolf?" "I don't really know. I never heard of that happening before, especially the kind of bite you got." "Great, I'm a trailblazer," I said sarcastically. I sat down on my couch and had to put my feet up so they wouldn't smack the cage. "Sasha, some weird crap." has been happening to me the last couple of days. Like what? Like at times my hearing is off the charts. Really? Yeah. I could hear car alarms that are blocks away. Sasha finished what I said. Holy shit. I continued. I also had an extreme amount of facial hair last night and then it went away in the morning. What about your eyes? Did you notice they were yellow? I didn't even look at my eyes. I sat there dumbfounded. What do you make of it? Sasha shook her head and said, it's like you're in some weird werewolf purgatory. It's like you're not fully a werewolf, but you have the makings of becoming one. You're fucking kidding me. I don't want to be a freaking werewolf. How do you reverse it? You can't reverse it, Tommy. What does that mean? I shouted. It means you are becoming immortal and there is no secret antidote. I began sweating. I could feel my heart rate go up. The room began spinning. Holy shit. I'm having a heart attack. My chest felt tight. I fell to the floor and blacked out. The next thing I remember was Sasha sitting me up on the couch and giving me some water. Tommy? Tommy? She asked. You all right? I put my hand on my chest. I don't know. I think I had a heart attack. I doubt that. You wouldn't be able to breathe. You had a panic attack. A panic attack? Who was I? Tony Soprano? I don't have panic attacks. It's to be expected. I just told you that there's a good chance that you're in some kind of werewolf limbo phase. I looked at Sasha and just wanted to scream at her at the top of my lungs. Why did I go to Slider's bar that night? And why did I go outside to talk to her? This was crazy. Maybe she's crazy. Maybe none of this is true. I sighed and got up. I better get you in the cage, I said. I'm not going to put chains on you, but if you get out of hand I might. You think you can put chains on me once I become a werewolf? Good luck. What are you? A $1.10. When I become a werewolf I'm bigger, my clothes become a part of me and I become heavier and larger. Oh, that makes sense. It might not make sense, but that's what happens. Get in the cage, I said, with as much authority I could muster up. This woman walked into my life and screwed it up in so many ways. Look at me. I am completely fucked up. I have insane bites all over my body. I got a vampire sleeping in my bedroom and now I'm entertaining the fact that the woman in front of me is moments away from becoming a werewolf. All I could was continue to play this out. How you doing in there? I asked. I'm all right. You better lock the door. Oh yeah. I got up and locked the door and I sat on the couch facing the cage. The sun was setting and I looked on staring at Sasha. And even though I was pissed, she was damn sexy. She looked good in her little white shorts. It's been a while since I fired one off, so to say I was horny was an understatement. Sasha caught me looking at her with my bad intentions. What? She said, in a sexy way only a woman as hot as her could pull off. I'm hoping you don't turn. And you're full of shit. Why? Because I'm going to go in there and rip your clothes off and make passionate animal cage love to you. Sasha stepped up to the cage bars. I stood up and reached in. I grabbed her from her waist and pressed her body up against mine with the cage bars separating us. We both tilted our heads just right and were able to kiss through the bars. Her breath smelt amazing. She was oozing with estrogen. I wanted her so bad I nearly came out of my clothes. I had no idea why I was turned on at this moment, but I was. I kissed her passionately and cupped her buttocks with my left hand, pressed her heart against me. I looked her in the eyes. You know, I said, this whole thing is foolish. You and I both know there is no way you're a. Suddenly, Sasha's blue eyes turned bright yellow. She looked like a damn demon. I jumped back onto the couch and let go of her. I hopped onto the floor and scurried away from the cage. There was at least 10 feet separating me from the cage. Sasha dropped to the ground and began to roll. She looked like she was having a seizure. Hair began protruding out of her body everywhere. It was like watching a motion film where you watch a flower grow in real time at an ultra speed. But this was actually happening. Within seconds she had enlarged a foot in height, had black hair, and her head went from a gorgeous brunette to a sleek wolf. She stared at the window where she could see the full moon and howled. Shoo, I yelled. I couldn't believe what I was doing. I was shushing a damn wolf. She must not have known I was in the room, because her head turned to me and she growled and barked at me as if I was 100 miles away. She begun scratching the carpet and ramming her body into the cage. Thank God the cage was holding up. But damn, she was louder than hell. The neighbors aren't too far away. How the hell was I going to calm her down? I thought about grabbing some meat from the fridge, but I didn't know if it would help. Plus, all I had were $20 steaks. She looked in the direction of my room and went absolutely berserk. She didn't like something in my bedroom. She must smell Patrick. What was I going to do? I couldn't calm her down. She wasn't having any part of me. As a matter of fact, my presence in the room seemed to be making matters worse. It wasn't like she and I had developed any kind of rapport with me so she could even consider listening to me. I looked in the cage at this beautiful black wolf. She was a sight to behold. Absolutely spectacular in her perfect wolf form. I had to admit she was scary looking, but I wasn't intimidated. She still had a level of femininity that made her seem more delicate than I imagined. I put my hand to my chin and scratched, and when I did I scratched a handful of beard. Crap. I ran to the bathroom and looked at myself in the mirror, fully expecting to have a Michael J. Fox Teen Wolf moment, but to my surprise, it just looked like I hadn't shaved in a couple of weeks. There were scattered patches of hair that looked more like a teenager's sad attempt to grow his first beard than the makings of a werewolf. I looked at my eyes and there was a hint of yellow. Something was wrong. I was caught in between what I used to be and what obviously Sasha had become. I didn't know what to think. Part of me felt like I had just died and gone to hell, but another more competitive part of me wondered what kind of badass I could become. Hey, anyone here? A voice yelled from my bedroom. It was Patrick, and he must wonder where he is and why a werewolf would be hooting and hollering in the living room. I went into my bedroom and Patrick had sat up. He was taking several deep breaths and caressing his throat. How does it feel? I asked, referring to his cracked larynx. It hurts to swallow, and inhaling is a bitch, so about every 2.2 seconds I'm in excruciating pain. Look, you attacked me. I was fine to just leave. I know. It wasn't my idea, it was Nero's. Patrick paused. You know, the guy you killed. Damn, that didn't sound right. This wasn't a video game where I eliminated an opponent in Halo. I fucking killed a man or Monty or whatever the fuck he was. I'm still wrapping my head around all of this, I said. That's what I've been trying to do for a week. Patrick added. You said you were new to all of this. Patrick leaned back against my bedpost and rested. Yeah, this was the last thing I wanted. You and I both. Patrick stared at my face with a puzzled look. I don't remember you having a beard before. I'm having my own issues, I said. Patrick didn't seem like he was up for an inquiry. He closed his eyes and took a big swallow. I had just noticed Sasha quit barking and snarling. Hold on, I said, and I dashed to the living room. Sasha was sound asleep. I sighed. At least she'll be quiet for the time being. I went back in the room and it appeared that Patrick had gone to sleep also. I left and went into my kitchen. I sat at my oak table and looked across my living room where I had a werewolf sound asleep. I was exhausted. I had barely slept and I only had one bed. Even though I barely knew Patrick, he was going to have a bunk partner tonight. I went into my room. I put a large pillow between him and I. There will be no vampire spooning in my bed. I laid down and turned my head and faced my cardboard windows, and within seconds I was out like a light. Chapter 10. I was awakened a few hours later by my new alarm clock, known as a pissed-off werewolf Sasha. She was yelping up a storm and I looked over at Patrick and he was no longer laying next to me. I instinctively felt my neck. I don't know why I thought he might have sucked my neck while I was asleep, but what the hell did I know? I was sleeping next to a freaking vampire. I walked out of my room cautiously and made my way out to the living room. Sasha saw me and began acting like a junkyard dog on crack. Right next to the cage was a black raven, just chilling and staring at the crazed, overgrown dog. When did my apartment become an episode of Wild Kingdom? Patrick! I called out to the bird. The bird flew and landed in the hallway where I was standing. Then right out of a Tolkien novel, the black raven transitioned and became Patrick. He collapsed to the ground and I grabbed his arm. I'm still not great with the whole transition thing, Cairo, he said, as if I could ignore the fact he just went from bird to man. I just stared at Patrick and mumbled, how did I get mixed up in this? Grabbed Patrick's arm and we went outside my apartment to the porch. Closed the door behind me. Maybe that will shut her up. Patrick walked over and sat on a bench that is adjacent to my apartment. You need to start getting used to your world being completely turned upside down. Everything you ever knew is wrong and everything that is actually true you couldn't come up with even in the darkest parts of your imagination. I stared blankly at my new friend and walked over to where he was sitting and sat next to him. Why were you the bird just now? It seemed to make your female werewolf friend less upset. How do you know she is female? I checked. You weren't perving in there, were you? I said, disgusted. I'm not into animal love, Patrick assured me. If she is hot in her carni form, then I might make an exception. You're funny, I said. Who knew? He laughed and then coughed like a 50-year smoker. You all right? Yeah, I'm okay. It's hard to be funny fighting for your life. Also, it's easier to breathe when I'm the raven. You're really going to milk this breathing thing, aren't you? I'm sorry, you did crush my face. He was right. I not only choked him out but used his body as a weapon to knock out his friend. So, what's the deal? Where do you live? Patrick was quiet. I had to kick a homeless vampire's ass. You don't have a place to stay? I asked. My parents kicked me out a month ago. How old are you? 20. Well, that's about the time parents start kicking their kids out. I looked at Patrick. My instincts were that I liked him. He seemed genuine. He appeared to be a legitimate guy like myself who got dealt a crappy hand as of late. You work. I can make money. Can you make money legally? I asked direct. Yeah, I have a storage unit filled with sports memorabilia. When I'm strapped for cash, I sell stuff on eBay. Cool, I said. I was a huge Raiders and Lakers fan, so this guy was right up my alley. Look, you can stay here for the meantime. Just pull in enough money to get your own food. I really don't eat. My stomach is pretty unpredictable. I looked Patrick in the eyes. You don't kill people, do you? Of course not. How do you feed your, desire? I haven't been a vampire for very long, but my sister works at a medical hospital. And she gave you blood? Why wouldn't she? 'Cause it's fucking weird, that's why. I laughed. She didn't ask what it was for. I told her. You told her? I asked, shocked. I had to. And she believed you? The whole turning into a raven thing pretty much seals the deal in the belief department. Yeah, that pretty much convinced me, I stated. There you go, Cairo, there you go. The sun began peeking out of the sky. I think your friend probably turned back, Patrick said, making a motion to the inside of the apartment with his head. It happens that fast? I asked. Put it this way, Tommy. Your beard is gone, and my skin is burning. I felt my face, and sure enough I was clean shaven. So what's the deal with that? Are you some partial werewolf? Your guess is as good as mine, Patrick. I got up and opened the front door to my apartment. Sasha was in a fetal position in the middle of the cage, soaking wet. Why is she soaked? It's what happens to werewolves. It's like sweat or secretion. That's disgusting. I actually think it's kind of hot, he laughed. It's not funny, I said. I might be halfway there. I turned and faced Sasha. Sasha, I called into the cage. She opened her eyes. She seemed disorientated. Tommy, she asked. Yeah. Let me out. I need to pee. I took the key out of my pocket and unlocked the cage. Sasha rushed past me and made her way to the bathroom. I looked into the cage and the carpet was scratched up and mangled. Oh well, I thought. There goes my deposit. She's pretty hot, Patrick said. Oh, she's trouble. Female werewolves usually are. They are a rare breed. Why is that? I asked. Because if a woman gets bit by a werewolf, she usually dies. Only really strong and tough women survive. You have to survive the bite to become one. Doesn't say much for the women's movement, I said. My experience is that women can take a lot more pain than men. We are wimps, aren't we? Patrick grinned, then coughed. We could now hear that Sasha had started a shower, and Patrick rolled his eyes at me. Throat any better? A little. I want you to know I've been bitten twice in the last few nights, and you don't hear me complaining. You like pain? Patrick asked. I was a street fighter growing up. Now I'm a professional one, so pain doesn't play a part in my life. Patrick cracked a smile and said, says the guy with a bandage covering his entire shoulder. Again, I said. You're funny. So, did you hit that? Patrick looked towards the bathroom and was referring to Sasha. For real, dude? I asked. I would. She's hot. I don't do anything until, and I wasn't going to start now. She's a lovely young lady, Patrick. You need to learn to respect women. Oh, I respect them, Cairo. Especially when they are down on all fours. I shot him another look. I'm kidding, he laughed. I think I liked you better when you couldn't talk. I motioned again to the bathroom at Sasha. I'm telling you she's trouble. Trouble or not. Damn, she can drip sweat on me anytime. Enough, dude. Sasha eventually got out of the shower and I gave her some workout shorts that were kind of small on me but looked like a trash bag on her. I actually had a woman's pink Raider jersey I had received as a gag gift from a friend of mine for being a Raider fan, so I let her wear it. Patrick went back in my room and laid down. He barely introduced himself to Sasha. He apparently was all talk. He was really shy around Sasha. It was almost humorous. Sasha didn't seem too interested in my pale vampire friend. It was weird. I had been alone for such a long time. The life of a fighter is a lonely one. It was nice having people around. Be how it may, they weren't exactly people, but it was nice having friends. Damn, I'm pathetic. Chapter 11. The following night was more of the same with Sasha. We had to blast the radio and act like we were having a party a couple times when Sasha decided to lose her mind and make enough racket to wake the whole block. But we did get through the night without any problems, and in the morning Sasha seemed very grateful that Patrick and I were there for her. For the next 2 weeks, the three of us became inseparable. It was odd having close friends again. I hadn't realized how much I missed joking around and being stupid with people. Patrick continued to get better and my injuries were healing pretty quickly. I told Patrick my real name was Tommy, but he said he liked calling me Cairo better. I told him I'd make an exception for him and let him call me that. Sasha and I continued having some sexual tension. We would kiss here and there, but I would never take it to the next level. I truly was having too much fun and didn't want to blow it with friends with benefits. I knew I didn't have a desire to be her boyfriend, but I did want to be her friend. Went down and got a queen-size bed at a yard sale. I stuck it in the spare bedroom so Sasha had a place to sleep. Patrick always slept in my bed because of the whole sunlight thing, being that my room was the safest place in the house. I, however, would sleep anywhere in the house, sometime next to Patrick, sometimes with Sasha, but mainly I would sleep on my couch. It was damn comfortable, and in the end that's all that matters when it comes to a good night's rest. I also got my windshield fixed at a local shop and the damn thing cost me $400. I let Sasha know she would pay for it by doing the dishes and keeping the apartment clean. With that being said, for the first time in my life I had real friends and I was having the time of my life. The three of us seemed to be as close as three oddballs could be. I had woken up late on a Saturday afternoon as that seemed to be the norm these days, considering I was keeping Patrick hours late into the night. I was having the sleep pattern of a vampire and that wasn't the healthiest way to live my life. I know the value of a good night's sleep, being that I am a fighter, but I was having too much fun to worry about that right now. I had fallen asleep on the couch watching some morning show. I had to look through the bars of the cage to watch TV, but if I tilted my head just right I could see the television without seeing any bars. Oh, the little things. I got up and grabbed some orange juice from the fridge and took out some eggs and made myself an omelet. I wasn't the greatest cook, but I knew how to make eggs. It was 2 in the afternoon and both Patrick and Sasha were still asleep. I didn't want to wake either of them up and I was enjoying my omelet a little too much to share. I went into my room and changed and decided to go for a ride and pick some things up at the farmer's market. There was a giant one I especially liked in San Bernardino. I needed to start eating healthy again because I was healing. My shoulder was still jacked up and my arm still looked like a dog had gotten to it. It would be a few months before I could really train the way I'm accustomed to. So for now, I was going to have to let my undefeated record stay idle for a few more months. I had checked in with the commission last week to let them know how I was doing. We were aiming for me to fight again in 6 months. That should be plenty of time for me to get right again. I went out to my car and could hear every siren, call, door, and car alarm in a 3-mile radius. I was learning to ignore it, but I couldn't believe I was actually sympathizing with canines. I drove up the 91 freeway towards San Bernardino. I hadn't paid much attention to the gas gauge as I pulled off the freeway onto D Street. I looked down and I noticed it was on empty. I needed to find a gas station fast. I looked around and there wasn't one to be found in any direction. So I kept driving forward hoping to run into something, but it was too late. My car did that regurgitate thing cars do right before they run out of gas. You know, that dry heave that comes out of your engine. I knew my car was done and it desperately needed some gas. I coasted to the right and parked on the street. I had no idea where the next gas station was. And unfortunately, I forgot my cell phone at my apartment. I knew I had to get out and walk, and luckily I had a gas container in my trunk. I grabbed it and started hiking up the street. I walked up the street for about 3 miles until I finally saw a gas station over on the left. I decided to take a shortcut by cutting through a back alley. I walked around a corner building and heard some commotion. I ducked behind a trash dumpster and looked out to what appeared to be some type of altercation. There were a group of high school kids in a circle confronting a tall, lengthy kid wearing a black hood. I could tell he was young by the way he talked. He appeared to have been at the wrong place at the wrong time. I could relate to that. The kid in the black hood was outnumbered 4-1. You really should just let me go, the young man said. I really don't want any trouble. Unfortunately, by the look of these guys, they were all about trouble. Watched on and then heard something that shocked the hell out of me. The boy in the black hood made a specific demand to the group of thugs that had surrounded him. He said, "You have 10 seconds to let me go through or I'm going to kick every one of your asses and not feel bad about it." Holy crap. Are you kidding me? The balls on this kid. The group of thugs looked at each other and just busted up laughing. Every single of the other guys were taller and wider than the young man. But that didn't stop the kid from doing a countdown. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, oh fuck it, the black hooded kid said. Now I want to kick your asses. Are you kidding me? I was about to jump out and make sure it was a fair fight, but this kid didn't need my help. He attacked them all like a superhero defending his city from supervillains. I felt like I was watching an action movie where you root for the underdog. This young man quickly proved that he was no underdog. He beat them up individually in pairs, and at one point the kid had one in a headlock while high-kicking another, and with his free hand he right-crossed another guy, knocking him to the pavement. He wiped the floor with these guys in a matter of seconds. I wanted to walk out and give him a standing ovation. It was by far the coolest thing I had ever seen. This 14-year-old kid either knocked them out or they ran off in fear of another beating. He finished off the last guy and wiped his hands. He looked at his masterpiece, with 3 guys laying on the ground and a 4th one a mile down the street. He smiled as if he just finished planting a garden. He sighed and turned towards where I was standing behind the dumpster. He smiled at me and nodded his head in triumph. "Hey," I yelled to him. "What are you? Some kind of black-headed superhero?" "Who's asking?" "I am, you little shit," I said. "You have a name?" he asked. "Yeah, sure do. My name is Tommy." I looked at this kid and he hadn't even broken a sweat. "You're about the baddest motherfucker I have ever seen fight. What's your name?" The kid pulled off his black hood and he had long flowing blondie hair. He grinned at me with his piercing blue eyes. "Well, Tommy, I'm glad you enjoyed the show. My name is Josiah." Chapter 12. I stared at this blondie blue-eyed kid and was astounded that he just took out for guys like they were kindergartners. "Josiah, huh? Sounds biblical. Do you have God on your side?" He smirked. "I might have an angel or two watching my back." Josiah wiped his brow and stretched his neck and then said to me, "You're not some creep hanging out in alleys, are you?" For this first time I noticed his stance. Even though we were having a peaceful exchange in dialogue, his footwork would say otherwise. The kid was a trained fighter. Only someone who has jiu-jitsu training or some kind of boxing training would stand with his momentum potentially ready to spring forward. He wasn't sure if he could trust me. How could I blame him? I was a 22-year-old man in a bad part of town hanging around dumpsters. I was probably sweaty and dirty from my 3-mile hike. "Well, you're in luck," I said. "I'm not a creep. Even if I was, I don't think I would want to mess with you after that display." I once again noticed his body language, and this punk still wasn't sure if he could trust me. "Hey, Josiah," I said calmly. "Stand down. I'm one of the good guys." He looked at me with a curious stare. "How did you know I was on my guard?" "I'm a professional fighter and your body language displays that in a blink of an eye you're ready to protect yourself. You can tell that by just looking at me?" Yeah, I said. I could also tell you were in protective stance and didn't want to attack me. It's subtle, but a guy like me can see it a mile away. Wow, you really know what you're talking about. Josiah's eyes widened and then he finally relaxed. A professional fighter? So you get paid for it? That would make it professional, I answered with a little snarky in my voice. Where do you fight? I'm in the California commissioned MMA. Bullshit. Josiah was impressed. I grinned. I'm 2-0. Why I felt I needed to validate myself to a young teenager was beyond me, but I guess after what I just witnessed he deserved. Josiah looked at me with his piercing blue eyes and then his eyes brightened. Wait, did you say your name is Tommy? Did you fight a couple weeks ago at the Staples Center? Yeah, I sure did. That is so awesome. I was there. I had horrible seats, but I remember your match. You kicked the crap out of the guy while only using your left arm. You saw that? Yeah. You could tell I was only using the left side of my body? Yeah, I was thinking this guy is so good he's fighting his opponent with one arm tied behind his back. Trust me, it felt that way. I had an injury to my right shoulder. I figured as much, unless you're such a badass you only fight guys one-handed. I'm impressed you noticed that. Not even in the write-up on Yahoo was that mentioned. How could I not? My right hand is my bread and butter. The first thing I watch in every fight is how explosive an opponent's right arsenal is. Are you training? I'm a boxer. That's a good place to start. Are you any good? What do you think? I looked at the spot where he easily took care of 4 guys and laughed. I guess so. I've been Golden Gloves champ 3 years in a row. That is impressive. You plan on doing the Olympics? Hell no. My dad would love that. But I want to do what you do. Olympics are a waste of time. There is no real money there. I want to get into the ring the second I'm 18 and kick ass as much as I can. Well, you're off to a good start, I said with obvious intentions. Josiah looked down the street and noticed the guys he kicked the crap out of had gotten up and left. Hey Tommy boy, we better split. I have a feeling those guys will be back with a few more friends, if you know what I'm saying. Unless you're prepared to fight about 20 guys with me, we should take off. I nodded and followed Josiah in the opposite direction I had come from. By the way, what is a MMA fighter doing in an alley? You buying crack? Not quite, my car ran out of gas. Oh, that sucks. Where's it at? A couple miles back near the freeway. Josiah pulled out his cell phone. Let's go to this Starbucks that's down the street and I'll have my sister come pick us up. Then we'll drive you to a gas station. Ah shit. I remembered I dropped my gas container back by the dumpster. What's wrong? I left my gas container back there. Don't worry, Josiah said. We'll get one at the station. They are like $20. Who said anything about paying for it? Josiah winked at me and I shook my head at the young punk. I had to admit I really liked him. He reminded me of myself, a little more out of control, but he was definitely a cool kid. We made our way to the Starbucks and sat down. Josiah called his sister and she told him she would pick him up in about 10 minutes. I looked at Josiah and he seemed to have an insane amount of poise for a kid his age. He sat there with the confidence of 3 grown men. Are you thirsty? I asked. I don't drink this stuff, Josiah laughed. They are just caffeinated shakes. I couldn't agree with you more. You're better off getting a shake. You would have less of a chance at heart attack. Josiah's eyes lit up. But I love their cake lollipops. They are only like 150 calories. It's like God himself baked them. God himself? He would make some cook. I laughed. Dude, you have got to try one. My sister likes Rocky Road, but I'm in lust with the birthday cake one. Let's do it, I said. I need to splurge now and then. I got up and walked over to the counter where there was a cute blonde putting out items behind the display area. She stopped what she was doing and looked up at me. I would like 2 cake lollipops, 1 Rocky Road and 1 birthday cake. Oh, I love the Rocky Road, the young blondie girl said. They are to die for. Apparently so. My friend claims they were made by Jesus himself. I wouldn't go that far, she said, smiling. Maybe an angel or wise man. There you go. I guess everyone agrees that there is some divine intervention taking place when these things get made. You just might be right. She rang me up and I paid for the lollipops and put a $2 tip in the jar. The cute ones get me every time. I took the Rocky Road and gave the birthday cake to my new friend. Thanks, man, he said. I'll get you next time. Josiah took a bite out of his birthday cake lollipop and closed his eyes and had what I swore to be a spiritual experience. He ate each bite slowly, savoring each nibble as if it was his last meal. When he finished, he looked up at me and said, "Better than sex. What do you know about sex? You're like 14 years old." "I'm 16, Josiah said proudly. "Or I will be in a week." "And you know about sex?" "I know about orgasms," he proclaimed out loud. "I believe that. You probably spend more time alone than a monk." Josiah was quiet and grinned. "I do have a wild imagination. Trust me, if I wanted to, I would have plenty of options." "Why don't you want to?" "Don't get me wrong. I want to real bad. I'm just not quite sure what my hang up is. Maybe 'cause you're 12 years old. I'm 16. I looked at this strange, honest kid and had to just smile. Does Josiah want to wait until he's in love? "What's wrong with that?" he answered indignantly. He did. I had to admit I was impressed. I wasn't about to give a teenager a hard time about being abstinent. I just smiled at him and said, "There's nothing wrong with it. When you're ready, you'll know." Everyone says that. I thought about that statement for a second. Actually, you won't entirely. No. It will just sort of happen one night and the whole time you will be having an out-of-body experience. Is that the way it happened with you? It was definitely an out-of-body experience. I was just a kid fumbling around in back of a truck up in the mountains. I thought about that moment and said, she didn't know it was my first time. She didn't. Nope. Why didn't you tell her? I didn't want her to think I was inexperienced. Would that have been such a big deal? It seemed big at the time, but I have always regretted not telling her. Why is that? Josiah's eyes were now locked in on me, and we were definitely having a bro moment. I don't know. I guess I wanted her to know I was going to remember her for the rest of my life. I thought she should know she experienced something I will never forget. She didn't know any of that. Instead, she walked away, assuming I was just a player and used her to get my rocks off. Well, you did get your rocks off. Yeah. But what? It was a defining moment. I should have told her. Josiah's eyes never stopped looking at me the whole time I spoke. He was like an apprentice soaking up all the wisdom of his master. Then Josiah looked outside through the window. "Hey, my sister is here." I looked out the window and saw a small white Toyota Corolla pull up. She parked the car and stepped out of the driver's side. I had just taken my first bite of my Rocky Road lollipop and it literally fell out of my mouth the second I saw Josiah's sister. Josiah's sister was the most beautiful woman I had ever seen. She had beautiful long blonde hair and amazing blue eyes like her brother. She was about 5 feet 5 inches tall and was wearing a light blue tank top with white shorts. Her legs were long and curvy. She had an amazing body, but what was more amazing was her smile. I was absolutely swept off my feet. It was the first time in my life I had fallen for someone and had not yet spoken a word to her. Josiah and I got up and walked to the door, and she met us at the entrance. She walked up to Josiah and said, "Let me see your hands." Josiah put his hands in his sweatshirt pocket. "Take them out, you little turd." Josiah reluctantly took out his hands and showed them to his sister. They were swollen and he had a couple of knuckles that were cut up. "You can't even go for a jog without fighting." "They started it," he said, like a petulant 6-year-old. "They always start it," she said, disappointed. I decided I needed to defend my young friend. "They really did start it," I said. "I was there." He was only defending himself. Josiah's sister looked at me and her eyes lit up. "Who are you?" "Just an innocent bystander who would have helped your brother out, but he took care of business on his own." "I bet he did." She looked at me and seemed a little embarrassed. Couldn't tell if she liked me or if she was just shy. "So, did you bring him here from wherever the fight took place?" "Actually, no. My car ran out of gas by the freeway and he and I walked here." "What kind of car do you have?" "It's a black Mustang parked on D Street." "Oh, I saw that beauty," she said. "I noticed it off the freeway and was so jealous. It's a nice car." I couldn't keep my eyes off this woman and she seemed to not be able to quit looking at me either. "So, Josiah's sister? Do you have a name?" "Yeah, I do. It's Maya." "Maya? That's a pretty name." She smiled. "Well, thank you, Mr. Mr. How old do you think I am? I'm actually not sure. You could be anywhere from 21 and 30 years old. 30. I was horrified. She quickly stated, a very handsome, dignified 30. Well, I'm a very handsome and sexy 22 years old. She looked me over and said, oh, are we? Just fishing for a compliment, I said, smiling at her. I looked over at Josiah and he seemed to be very put off that I was flirting with his sister. Seconds after I met her, Maya again looked me over and said, well, the fact I said handsome and dignified is all I can give you at the present moment. If you're sexy, that remains to be seen. Are you two done? Josiah finally asked. I told Tommy we would take him to get some gas and give him a lift back to his car. Well, Tommy, Maya said, aren't you just the damsel in distress? I'll just have to jump on my white horse and bring you to go get some gas. She then smiled at me in a way that completely melted my heart. I had never been more attracted to a woman in my life. She then turned around and slowly walked back to her car. Josiah and I followed behind her. Something tells me I just made two very good friends. At least I was hoping so. Chapter 13. They took me to a gas station and I bought another container. I wasn't about to let Josiah try to steal one. That wasn't the kind of impression I wanted to give to Maya, and plus shoplifting was never my style. After we got the gas, they took me back to my Mustang and I poured about a gallon into the gas tank. I thanked them both and asked if I could have either of their numbers. They practically fought over who gave me their digits first. I took both their pieces of paper and placed them on the passenger seat of my Mustang. I said goodbye and it was weird. I wanted to hug them both. I felt like I had known both of them my entire life. I decided against hugging them and waved and got into my car. I drove back to the gas station to put more gas in my car so I could make it back to my apartment. I decided I had no longer wanted to go to the farmer's market, so I decided to just head back to the apartment. As I drove back home, I couldn't quit thinking about my experience with Maya and Josiah. I have had a strong desire to want to mentor Josiah and help guide him in the right direction. And with Maya, well, I had lots of desires when it came to her. She was without a doubt the most beautiful woman I had ever seen. It seemed like she liked me, but what did I know? Whenever I'm generally attracted to a girl for all the right reasons, I tend to blow it. With girls, I'm not that interested in. I can be charming and sexy, but when I actually do like a girl, I usually act and say all the wrong things. It's like I try too hard. I don't think I ever felt as initially infatuated with a woman in my life as I am with Maya. I looked down on my passenger seat at Maya's cell number on the white strip of paper. I had such genuine feelings for her. I knew I needed to play this right. Once again, I looked down at the number on the seat. Damn it. Tommy, play this right. Don't be that guy. Don't be the guy that calls a girl seconds after meeting her. Come on, Tommy. Get it together. Do not call her the second you get back home. Don't do it. I got home and apparently both Patrick and Sasha were still sleeping. I had left my phone on the floor near the couch. I walked over to it and picked it up. Don't do it. It's too soon. I sat there with the cell phone in one hand and her number on a piece of paper in the other. I weighed the pros and cons, but in the end I knew what I was going to do regardless. I began dialing her number and I paused before I pressed the last number. Who calls a girl he likes minutes after meeting them? I walked over to the kitchen table and sat down. I do. I pressed the last number. It rang once. Hello, a woman's voice said. I coughed and then I said, hey, it's Tommy. 5 minutes ago, Tommy? Maya said, as adorable as I had ever heard a woman speak. It's been more like 25 if anyone is counting, but that would be me. I just wanted to call back and say, thank you again for taking me to get gas. It wasn't a problem. I was going to pick my brother up anyway. He likes to run way far from home and then have me pick him up. Josiah's a good kid. Yeah, he is, she said. He's the best little brother a girl could ask for. I smiled. I liked the fact they had family. That's something I never had. Heard Josiah yelling in the background. Tell him how hot you think he is. What? Did he say what I thought he said? I could hear panic in Maya's voice. Hold on, Tommy. I could hear her hand over the phone. Josiah, shut up. And then I heard a smacking sound. Ouch. That hurt. Josiah laughed. Then shut your mouth, Maya whispered, but I could hear every word. Hey, I'm back, she said. Did you hear that? Hear what? I asked, acting like I hadn't just heard the greatest thing in my life. Oh good, she said. My brother was just being a pain in the butt. Do you have any brothers or sisters? No, I'm an only child. I was raised by my grandparents. Really? Well, mainly my grandmother. Oh okay, Maya hesitated. It's okay. My grandmother is an amazing woman. She must be. Why is that? 'Cause you seem like a really great person. She raised you well. I had the biggest, goofiest grin on my face. Maya, I was thinking, would you like to go to the movies tonight? Tonight? She seemed confused. Or we can go tomorrow night? No, tonight is good. Yeah, she confirmed. Great. Text me your address and I'll pick you up around 8 o'clock. Okay, I will do that. Awesome. I'll see you in a couple of hours then. I'm looking forward to it, she said. And Maya? Yeah. One more thing. What is that? She asked. Tell Josiah I think his sister is pretty hot herself. Maya laughed, embarrassed. Okay, I'll tell him, she said, and I heard her smack him again. I'll see you tonight at 8 o'clock. I walked into my bedroom and Patrick and Sasha were sleeping on my bed. Sasha apparently got up at some point and decided to lay next to Patrick. They were kind of close. Their heads were facing each other about 2 inches apart. They were either kissing or talking before they both fell asleep. Considering Patrick was about as smooth as a drunken sailor on leave, I didn't think he got any action. A part of me almost wishes they would hook up. Now that I have met Maya, there is no way I'd be doing any random makeout sessions with Sasha anymore. It was 6 p.m. I had about an hour before I was going to leave for my date. Decided to go into the cage and do a workout. I banged out 500 push-ups and 500 sit-ups. After my sit-ups, my abs felt like they were about to explode. I got up out of the cage and peeled off my shirt. I tightened up my six-packs. I hadn't been eating much as of late, so my abs were out and about. It doesn't matter how big my chest and arms got, I knew the ladies like stomach muscles, and that is why I always worked them double time. Chapter 14. The Sleeping Beauties were still sleeping when I left. I left them both a note that said I had gone out for the night, and I could be back real late. I liked the fact I was accountable to someone. I hadn't felt that since I left home. It took a half hour to get to Josiah and Maya's house. They lived near Cal State San Bernardino College in the better part of town. I pulled up to their house and I felt as nervous as I've been in a very long time. Parked my Mustang next to a giant tree in their front yard and got out. I was dressed semi-casual, wearing a black short-sleeve button-down shirt with a pair of black jeans. I had on my best pair of loafers. They looked good and were comfortable for walking. I checked myself in my driver's side mirror, making sure my fly wasn't open and I had no boogers in my nose. Then I casually walked up the driveway and knocked on the door. A silver-haired man with a spectacular handlebar mustache answered the door. He was fit for his age, and I was guessing he was about 50 years old. Hello there, the older gentleman said to me. How are you doing, sir? I said, completely thrown off by the fact that a dad answered the door. It's a mom, a brother, it's never a dad. The dad usually is. Usually sitting in an easy chair, eyeballing me like a king on his throne. I'm good, he said. Tommy? Is it? Yeah, that's right. I said, a bit awkward. I didn't want to sound too confident out of respect for the fact I was taking his daughter out and didn't want to appear to be a smooth customer. He stuck out his hand and I gave him a firm handshake. Nice grip. I'm Daniel Rain. Come in. Maya's almost ready. I entered their house and looked around. It was something out of a Norman Rockwell painting. The house fit every description of a good old-fashioned country home. There were paintings of cowboys on the wall, a throw rug in the middle of the floor, and all the furniture looked to be handpicked from an antique shop. There was even an apple pie aroma in the house which showed that someone was obviously baking. And sure enough, a short, buxom woman came out of the kitchen wearing an apron. She had blonde hair and blue eyes and was probably the most beautiful 50-year-old woman I had ever seen. I was a little thrown off by how pretty Mom could be. I definitely saw where Josiah and Maya got their good looks from. Hi, Tommy, the curvy woman said. Hello, Mrs. Rain, I said, blushing. I was never very good at this, but this was highly awkward considering how normal everything was. For God's sake, I had a werewolf and a vampire spooning in my bed at my apartment, for crying out loud. Have a seat, Tommy, Mrs. Rain said. I walked over and sat on their brown couch. As I sat, my entire body sunk into it like a hammock. Wow, this is probably the single most comfortable couch I've ever sat on. Exactly, Tommy, Daniel stated with an exclamation point. Margaret wants me to get rid of it. Margaret was apparently Mrs. Rain's first name. It's ugly, Dan. And it's filthy. This was obviously a daily argument they have. I couldn't help but smile at how cute they were. So Tommy, what do you do? Are you in college? Daniel asked as he packed himself a pipe. Actually, no. I'm a professional athlete. Daniel's eyes grew large. An athlete? What kind? I'm a fighter. You mean like a Sugar Ray Leonard kind of fighter? Well, not exactly, I said. There's a new professional fighting sport called mixed martial arts. Oh, MMA, Daniel said. Josiah and I watch that all the time. I just took him to a match a couple weeks ago at the Staples Center. He mentioned that to me. Wow, do you know any of those guys? Daniel looked at me and his pipe seemed to be ready. I smiled and said, I was one of those guys. You were? Which fight were you? Daniel was as excited as I wish my own dad would be to find out this information. One of the hallway doors opened and Josiah came walking out. He was the first fight, Dad. You didn't see it. You were too busy getting nachos. Daniel looked at me and grinned. I do love my nachos. Especially the ones at the arena. It's like the cheese is more heavenly. I smiled because I could see where Josiah got his love for food from. I wouldn't know. I haven't had nachos since the 3rd grade. I looked over at Josiah and said, What's up, man? Josiah came over to me and I stood up to shake his hand, but instead he gave me a bro hug like we've been pals for years. Damn, I like this kid. Dad, Tommy is only 22 and he is already making a living in the sport. Josiah was trying to convince his dad of something. And that's fine, Josiah, you can do whatever you want after you at least try out for the 2008 Olympic team. Son, you haven't lost in 25 fights and the only reason why you lost your first one was because we didn't know how to tighten your gloves right. Daniel looked at me and laughed. They kept slipping during the fight. It threw up the poor kid's rhythm off. He was only 12. Wow, you haven't lost in 25 fights. That's amazing. I looked over at Josiah, and he seemed to care less that his dad was gushing over him. He had no idea how lucky he was, how I would have given anything to hear my biological father talk about me that way. Suddenly, a hallway door opened and Maya walked out. She came walking down the hallway looking spectacular. She was wearing a white blouse with light blue jeans. She had done her hair up and it took everything I had to keep my jaw from hitting the floor. Wow, you look great, I said. So do you, Maya said back to me. Maya and I were locked into each other and as far as I was concerned there was no one else in the room. So where are you two kids planning on going tonight? Maya's dad asked. I was thinking about taking her over to Irvine. There's a spot called Irvine Spectrum. There are a lot of shops and a giant movie theater. Oh, that sounds like so much fun, Maya's mom said. Daniel looked at me and nodded his head. For the first time he gave me that "You better look out for my daughter" look. I smiled and told them how wonderful it was to meet them. Josiah seemed a bit jealous that he wasn't invited, but I knew he and I would hang out eventually. I walked over to the door and was still mesmerized by how great Maya looked. Had a quick moment of clarity when I remembered I had something for Josiah. Decided to call Josiah over to me. Hey Josiah, come here. He walked over to me and I reached in my pocket and pulled out a card to the gym where I work out. What's this? He asked. Well, when your dad thinks you're ready, I'll put in a good word at my gym and get you a membership. Really? Josiah looked at his dad for approval. As long as you continue to focus on boxing, I think it would be great if Tommy showed you a thing or two about MMA. Josiah stared at the card like a kid looking at a video game cover. Thanks, man. No problem. Until then, I'll come back and we could work out together. We can do something more interesting than you running across San Bernardino. That sounds great, Tommy, Mrs. Rain said. I smiled and opened the door. Said goodbye to everyone and Daniel told me to have Maya back by 1 in the morning and I told him no problem. When we left the house, the first thing Maya said to me was, I don't have a curfew. I am 21 years old. My dad likes to think he can still make rules for me. It's okay, I said. I plan on having you back by then. We walked down the driveway and I ran around my car to open her door. I let her in and closed the door behind her. I walked around the car and waved to her parents who were looking out the window. I sat into the driver's seat and looked over at Maya. She smiled. I am so sorry my parents and brother are such dorks. You have no idea how awesome they really are. I said, as serious as I had ever been. Really? Yeah, really. They're amazing. I really mean that. Maya smiled and leaned back in her seat. I started my engine and made my way to the 91 freeway. Have you lived here all your life? I asked. Born and raised in San Bernardino, Maya replied. What about you? I lived in Southern California all my life, but I've been all over. I lived in Buena Park, Fullerton, Corona. I even had a stint in Garden Grove. So, you said your grandmother raised you? Sure did. Mother Teresa had nothing on my Nana. That's cute. I'm being serious. She was one of those really religious people who actually lived the way she was supposed to according to her faith. How so? She doesn't judge. She just loves people. Even to this day she finds the strength to go to the more needy areas of town and just gives herself to those communities. She sounds wonderful. I looked outside my window and felt guilty singing my grandmother's praises. Hadn't seen my grandma in months and I had been feeling bad about that as of late. Yeah, I said. She is wonderful. It took about a half hour to get to Irvine Spectrum. The Irvine Spectrum is a giant block that had been turned into something that resembled a street fair. It had a variety of shops ranging from chocolates to novelty stores. There were street performers, tarot card readers, and a lot of places to eat, dance, and have a great time. I pulled into the back parking lot and found a spot near the front. Took about 10 minutes, but my grandmother had always taught me patience is a virtue. We got out of my car and I looked up into the sky. I was really hoping for a normal night. No werewolves, no blood-sucking vampires, and no drama. All I know was I was planning on Maya and I having an old-school, all-American date. There are 4 necessities that make up a great first date. 1. Go to cafe for an appetizer or a drink and have conversation. 2. Head over to a plush restaurant for a nice romantic dinner. You're laying the groundwork to really get comfortable with the person you're with. The second half of the date is about having a great time. You need to engage in a fun activity like batting cages or even a nightclub where there is great music and maybe some dancing. That's where you let loose and show your real colors. After all that, you have the grand finale. It actually isn't that grand but more of a mellow, an introspective activity. Right before you drop your date off you stop by a nice coffee shop and end the night the way you started, with great conversation. And how does a player like me know all of this? Hey, a player needs love too. After I parked, I got out and walked around my car to open the door for Maya. As I helped Maya out, she stumbled finding her footing on the parking lot, and fell into my arms. It was nothing major but I got a glimpse of the kind of intimacy to expect. I'm sorry, she said. She was clearly embarrassed. I tried to make light of the situation by saying, it's okay, I'll let it slide this time because you smell nice. Oh, you will, she said, flirting back at me. That's very nice of you. What can I say? I'm a sucker for things that smell pretty. Maya laughed at my little joke and pulled herself together. Once she was situated, we headed up to the front of the Spectrum. Wow, this is pretty, Maya said, looking at the lights. It's no Las Vegas, but it's about the best you're going to get in Orange County. We decided to walk around a bit and scope out the various shops. We stopped in at an arts and crafts shop and Maya was like a kid in a candy store. I love this store, she said. If I could I would buy the whole shop. She went from item to item with eyes as big as gumballs. I couldn't help but be amused at this beautiful woman so interested in miniatures, doll houses, and scrapbook items. Tommy, Maya said, when I die I want my ashes spread out in this store. Well, I said, that might be hard for the cleaning crew to clean up and I'm pretty certain it's a health hazard. Oh, you're no fun, she joked. I hope you're not planning on dying anytime soon. For you, Tommy, I'll live to be 100. I smiled and said, I hope so. If you do, I'll make sure your ashes make their way over here. Maya smiled and we left the store. We walked further down the street until we saw a palm reader. I tried to look away, but the damn gypsy-looking woman made direct eye contact with me and it was too late. Maya caught her looking at me And something told me that a palm reader is right up Maya's alley. Hey Tommy. The palm reader is making goo-goo eyes at you. I can see that. I must have sucker written on my forehead. Sucker? Never. I have always had good readings when I've done them. Let me guess, they were generic things like you'll find love, have some success the following month, and you will encounter something that you hadn't anticipated. More or less, yes, Maya laughed. That's because love is a big word and it could mean a variety of different relationships. And unless you're the unluckiest person in the world, everyone is going to have some kind of success month to month. Okay, smarty pants, how did the last lady know Fightum would accept me into their designer college? She didn't know unless she said, Maya, Fightum, the designer college you are trying to get into will accept you. It was just a generic shot in the dark. It could easily have been something as unexpected as finding a beautiful puppy. These people need to give you specifics and they don't. Okay, Mr. Skeptic, just give it one shot because something tells me you have never done anything like this before. Am I right? I looked Maya and grinned. No, I haven't done anything like this before. Wow, and you're such an expert, she said mockingly. Come here. Maya grabbed my hand and led me to the psychic. I had to admit it was worth giving it a shot to be able to hold Maya's hand for the first time. Hello, the lady wearing the gypsy outfit said. She apparently had gone to a costume shop and found the most authentic layers of clothes she could find. She did look good. I'd give her an A+ for first impression. Hello to you, madam, I said, smirking from ear to ear. May I take your right palm, sir? She asked. Sure. I sat down in the empty chair on the opposite side of her. May I have your first name? It's Cairo, I joked. Cairo, she asked. No, I'm just kidding. It's Tommy. I put out my right hand and she flipped it over and looked at my palm. Then something unexpected happened. When she touched the palm of my hand, I saw a flash of light. First I thought one of the outdoor cover lights burnt out, but I looked up and realized I wasn't even under anything. As a matter of fact, there wasn't much light around us. Oh wow, she said. I can feel a lot of energy coming through you. She paused and stared at my palm like it was a treasure map. This line here, she said, pointing to the longest line on my palm, shows that you are going to live a very full life. That's good. I should, with all the exercise and nutritious food I eat. No, Tommy. And this is where it began to get very weird. This bizarre woman looked deep into my eyes as if she was trying to speak to my innermost self. Tommy, you're going to live a very long life. A very long life? That's good, right? Isn't that the whole point to all of this, to try to live as long as possible? I looked up and winked at Maya. Maya looked on with as serious of an expression I had ever seen from her. The psychic then grabbed my arm. An exceptionally long life, she said loudly. I get it, I said. I'll probably see 100 candles on a birthday cake when all is said and done. She continued to look at me with a freakish glare and continued. Your life span is not the part that is overwhelming me. Overwhelming her? That's a bold statement. You will have an extraordinary life, Tommy. I almost want to tell you it will be the stuff of legends. I once again looked up at Maya. Legends even? I laughed. The lady then let go of my hand and stood up. She turned around and didn't say a word. Are you all right? I asked. Yes, I'm sorry, she said. I have never had a reading like this. I'm not even sure how to act. It's okay, really it is. You can tell me anything. This woman was obviously pushing for the biggest tip she ever forgotten. She sat back down and said, it will be a life full of adventure and also one full of heartbreak. She then looked up at Maya and smiled. Okay, that was creepy. Still, I had to admit she now had my attention. What kind of adventure? Asked. You will be the first to do certain things and also be the last to do others. You will have whatever you want whenever you want it. But all of that will come with a price. She again let go of my hand and looked at me perplexed. You okay? Now she was freaking me out. The lady got up and just walked away from the table. She didn't even ask to be paid. She just continued to walk as if she was trapped in a daze. I looked up at Maya and grinned. What a kook! But it wasn't over. The lady turned around and walked back to us. I thought she must have realized she didn't get paid. Reached into my wallet to pull out a 20. She walked right up to me and I handed her the money. She rejected the money and said, make the right decision, Tommy. Everything rides on it. Everything. Right decision regarding what? I asked. You will know when it happens. It will be a coin flip and you need to follow your heart. She then sat down and shooed us away and that was it. I got up and grabbed Maya's hand and we went down the street and we were both pretty weirded out. That didn't go anything like I thought it was going to, I said. Do they usually not want to be paid? Never, Maya said. Maya stopped in the middle of the city walk and looked at me. I have gone to these ladies over 100 times in the last 5 years. I have never heard anyone get a reading like that. Look, Maya, I respect that you believe these women have the ability to see into the future, but I'm still pretty skeptical. Was it off the charts weird? What she did? Yes. Does it validate that anything she said would come to pass? I hardly doubt it. Let's go get something to eat. Maya smiled and said, that sounds like a good idea. I decided to go straight to the plush restaurant part of the date considering we needed a change of scenery fast. There was a real nice seafood restaurant at the end of the strip and I was craving some mahi-mahi. You like seafood? I asked. I love it. I escorted Maya to the restaurant and they immediately seated us. We ordered quickly and ate even faster. I had the mahi-mahi and she had the shrimp platter. We were both incredibly quiet during dinner. After I finished eating, I looked across the table at my Maya. She has the most beautiful eyes I had ever seen. I decided to put what that lady said aside and enjoy Maya's company. She looked adorable and hot. That wasn't easy to pull off. She caught me looking at her. I gently nodded my head and winked at her. What are you up to? She asked. Me? I'm not up to anything. Okay, I'll believe that for now, but I do want to ask you a question. I like questions, I said, sitting up. Go for it. What's your story? My story? Yeah, I can see that waters run deep with you, she said. Waters run deep? I've never been told that before. And to be honest, I wasn't even sure what that meant. Do you want to know my life story or my belief system? I asked. I want to know what makes you tick. I looked at her and didn't want to ruin this moment by saying something stupid. And trust me, I had 100 stupid responses to her question. I decided to filter them out and said, I'm just a regular guy wanting to be happy. That's the generic answer, Tommy. If you read a book on how to answer that question, that would be what the author would say is the right thing to say. I defended myself by saying, no one has ever said my waters run deep before. Especially after a couple of meetings. Tommy, living in Southern California has taught me a few things. The main one is people our age don't show their soul to people right out of the gate. And you think I have? I haven't really broken down and said too much, have I? You think I'm already exposed? Not exposed, Tommy. You're real. It's how you act. It's the way you talk. Isn't really what you say but how you say it. This was starting to freak me out. First crazy palm reading lady and now Maya. I was starting to feel like I was a guest on the Dr. Phil show and I was about to be told some horrible news. Maya pulled back. I've made you uncomfortable, haven't I? No, I said. I'm just not very good at this. At talking, she laughed. No, I was quiet for a moment and then I said, I think the same thing about you. What is that exactly? Maya asked. I looked at her and knew what I wanted to say, but I was afraid to say too much. This was our first date, for heaven's sake. When I look at you, I can tell there is a lot going on. You seem to be connected. Connected. A lot of times people say things and their words aren't connected to how they feel, or they feel things and aren't quite sure how to say them. With you it seems effortless. I barely know you, but at the same time, I feel I know exactly who you are. I feel the same way about you, Tommy. Maya gazed at me in a way no woman ever had done before. It made me nervous and excited all in the same breath. Felt like my heart was going to come out of my chest and loved every minute of. I stared across the table and I looked into her eyes. I was once again quiet. And for the first time in my 22-year life, I took a woman in. I saw beyond her looks. I saw past the beauty, the hair, the makeup. I saw her for who she was on the inside. I heard and felt her without a word being said or a touch given. She looked back at me and was also very quiet and very still. If two people ever knew the exact moment they fell in love, this was that moment. At least, it was mine. This little firecracker, a woman I had met hours earlier, just defined me and stood her ground. She wasn't running for the hills, instead. She was right here in the moment with me. I stood up and walked over to her side of the table. I grabbed an empty chair at an empty table beside us and sat next to her. She didn't seem surprised at the grand gesture I had just made. Instead, she never quit looking at me. Reached out my right hand and she grabbed it with both of hers. I leaned in and gently kissed her on the lips. I took my left hand and placed it on the back of her head. Her lips were soft and tender. The kiss lasted about 10 seconds. It was the single greatest kiss of my life. We both opened our eyes and continued to stare at one another. I had never felt anything so intense in my life. You're very handsome, Maya said, rubbing the back of her hand across my face. But you know that, don't you? I smiled because it didn't matter what I thought. The only thing that truly mattered to me at that moment is what she thought. I think you're the most beautiful woman I have ever seen. She smiled shyly and said, Wow, number one. I nodded my head and then kissed her again. This time the kiss was a tad more passionate. By now we must have been making a little bit of a scene in the restaurant, but I didn't care. Maya leaned into me and placed her forehead on my chest. You're like a brick wall. She let go of my hands and put them over my chest and abs. Watch it, young lady. This is a family restaurant. I looked around and there wasn't anyone watching. She continued to feel my chest and my stomach. You're built like a gymnast. I grinned. If a gymnast could be so lucky. And here is where Tommy's cocky side comes out. She laughed. Well, I hate to say it, but I'm a pretty confident person. Maya looked up at me and said, I like that, that's a good thing. Hey, let's get out of here, I said. There's a place I want to take you. Looked down at my watch and it was 10:30 p.m. We still have enough time to go there and get you back by 1 a.m. You know you don't really have to take me home at 1 a.m. Oh, I'm taking you home at 1 o'clock. Your dad was very clear to me. And as long as you live under his roof, I joked, you're going to abide by his rules. Oh great, you're going to be on his side, she laughed. I will until he likes me. He likes you, Tommy. Trust me on that one. Really? Yes, he likes you a lot. He figures you're two for the price of one. Huh. You can be in both his son's and daughter's life. He sees how much Josiah looks up to you. I really like the idea of her dad liking me. I think your little brother is pretty cool, I said. He's not so little. I know, he could probably kick my ass even at 15. Maya looked me over and then surprisingly said to me, No, I think you could keep up with him. And she was as serious as a heart attack.